We're down at the annual St. Paul Ice Fishing Show. We're in the clam booth. I see you got your ice team shirt on there. And, you know, we're going to talk walleye fishing, you know, but we're going to talk about walleye ice fishing.
Absolutely.
What kind of tips can you give guys on first finding those fish out there? If they're just getting started or with their experience?
Well, there's two patterns I look for, especially up in the Hayward area where we all live, you know. I think early ice, there's a fair number of fish that are relating to the weeds yet. And, you know, in the fall they were deeper, but there's a certain amount of fish that will come up on the weed edges and be within, I don't know, on a drop-off area, a shear drop area. They'll be within probably 20 or 30 feet of that edge. And so it's a good time to fish tip-ups. In many cases, as you know, the guys like to put tip-ups out right in the evening in the last hour of daylight, probably for a couple hours after daylight. If not, some of the guys fish, you know, long time into the night, and then early in the morning. That's always a kind of a tried and true early ice situation. There is an ice situation that I've been using for a number of years, and I don't know how many people do it, but what I try to do is I try to find basin areas. And the basin areas I'm talking about might be anywhere from 15 feet down to 30 feet deep, where the bottom of the lake levels out. Right. So I'm not looking at the real deep stuff.
Soft bottom, I assume?
Yeah, it'd be soft bottom on the very basin part, okay? And it's best, the ideal scenario, I can think of a number of places that I've had really good luck with this, is where maybe there's two sunken islands that are pretty close together in an area, and maybe it's 100 feet or 200 feet in between them, and there's a basin in between them. That creates a natural runway for those fish. The ones that are out in that deeper water, they'll go in between those islands, and they're not right on the drop-offs. I actually concentrate tip-ups and jigging anywhere from right where the drop-off hits that basin, so on that lower drop-off area, and then out from there into the basin for a ways. And I might put tip-ups out 50, 60, 80, 100 feet away from the drop-off, as long as that bottom's somewhat flat. And I move them around a lot. And for myself, when I'm jigging in one of the holes, if I'm not marking fish when I'm jigging, then I'll move my jigging station around too. And if all of a sudden I start marking fish and I catch one, then I'll move my tip-ups out into that area of the basin. So I usually have fishing to myself early ice, because not very many people use these areas or even think about looking at them. But I've had some really good success.
How deep are you talking?
And like I said, the base of the drop-off needs to be anywhere, in my experience, it needs to be anywhere from about 15 feet, but possibly as deep as 30. I normally don't try to look for any basins deeper than 30.
Right.
And the ideal basins, to me, have always been in that 19 to 25 foot range. If I'm looking at the lakes up around, you know, the Hayward area or northern Wisconsin area, those seem to have given me good, consistent success. And they're relatively flat bottom in those spots. Okay, I'm not looking at it dropping off into 35, 40, 50 feet. You know, this is up in like bays. Good areas to look are the bays that are fairly deep but not monstrously deep. So I've had good luck in those areas. It takes a long time to figure them out, but the one good thing about it is once you start catching in a fish in a place like that, they seem to be consistent from year to year to year. And so those are the two patterns that I look for early in the season.
You mentioned fish using runways and stuff. I know, and that's one of the things I do is I look for interconnected structure down deeper water. But you're going off on the edge of that. Right?
Yeah, I'm not afraid to go off 50 feet to 100 feet off of that. So you start looking, okay, this drop-off's right here, and you might see that I have a tip about 100 feet away from the drop-off.
That's different.
But it's amazing how many times you get those fish out there.
Well, they roam a lot, I think.
They do roam. I think they follow those edges a lot, okay, and that's where I normally end up jigging. But there's a fair amount of fish that'll just be in that area. You know, if it's an area that they might even come up shallower at night to feed on, during the daytime, a lot of those fish are in that basin, in that area, and they'll bite early ice. They'll bite.
You mentioned tip-ups. There's not enough guys go out and jig fish for them. I know you do.
Oh, no, early
jig
ice.
Fish, you could catch it.
Yeah, early ice, not enough guys jig fish. I don't even use tip-ups much anymore. I use a setup called a hot box, which will keep your hole open. And then you put a little rod holder with a real long, it's called a snare rod. It's like a giant dead stick, but I tip that with a jig all the time, jig and a minnow. And I'll usually put a sonar by it so I can see it, and I'll zoom in I use Lowrance stuff, so I just zoom it in so you can see it from a distance. And the one thing you'll find out, if you are a tip-up fisherman, you never knew this, and that's how many fish will actually come up and look at your minnow and swim away. So when you realize that with this setup that I use right now, I drop my jig stick, put it down, run over to that hot box, which would, for most guys, is a tip-up, and I can a lot of times tease that fish into biting with that jig and minnow by just jigging for it then. So I'm only jigging there when the fish is there. But it's a lot nicer because you don't get as bored. There's always some action going on. Because either you're seeing fish in your own jig hole, or you're looking out where normally you have tip-ups. You look out and go, oh, there's a fish out there. I'm going to go try to jig that one up. It's absolute riot. And it's very, very productive.
Interesting stuff, and I hope you have a good winter this winter, Gary.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on here.
You bet. Anytime.